Associate Professor James Lim.
Question number 40.
Mr. James Lim asked if banks and credit card issuers should be encouraged to provide wholesale insurance cover for card fraud losses so that they can write off smaller losses incurred as a result of fraud. There is little demand from credit card issuers to purchase insurance to cover fraud-related losses arising from their credit card portfolios. Instead of insurance, which will lead to higher costs for consumers, it is more important for credit card issuers and customers to play their respective parts in preventing fraud. Credit card issuers such as banks have invested considerable resources in building fraud surveillance systems and controls to combat card fraud. These systems have been enhanced over the years in response to changing technologies and methods used by the fraudsters. Today, major banks share fraud trends with one another, enabling them to continually refine fraud rules to tackle the latest fraud techniques. Customers should keep their cards safe and immediately report to their issuing banks if they lose their cards. A timely report will cap a customer's liability at $100 unless he is subsequently found to have acted fraudulently or negligently. For online payments, customers should not disclose credit card details or one-time PIN to anyone and should practice strong cyber hygiene, such as by regularly updating the security patches and anti-malware software on their devices. I find myself keep repeating this in Parliament and reminding people. Practice good cyber hygiene. So for unauthorized payments to merchants that are not secured by OTP, banks have the right to recover the lost amounts fully from the merchants, and hence customers will not bear any loss. We will continue to monitor the fraud situation and ensure that banks do their part to provide their customers with clear steps to take in order to protect themselves from such losses. In addition, the Industry Code of Practice for Banks on Credit Cards issued by the ABS, or Association of Banks in Singapore, sets out the liability of cardholders under various circumstances. It is currently being reviewed to consider emerging scenarios for fraud and further risk mitigation measures.
Associate Professor James Lim.
Thank the Minister for his comprehensive response and for sharing with us about how the system is being continually refined. I have just one supplementary question for which some motivational context behind the original question I think would be useful. The US has the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which by limiting the liability on consumers has actually shifted a significant part of the burden of fraud detection and policing away from the consumer and government and back toward credit card providers. And to even as he has shared, we have some elements of this in place. I think the routine reporting of fraud and just in our own MPSs when we have residents coming into us fearful for the loss of their life saving due to fraud, it makes me feel that consumers are often still in lurch for liability on unauthorized transactions on their credit card accounts. So to build on my question, I wonder if the MAS has considered other forms of regulation that would potentially shift the burden of responsibility away from consumers constantly just improving their cyber hygiene and toward better deployment of fraud detection technology and tools by financial institutions because they are held more liable for fraud-related losses.
Minister.
I mentioned just now, I keep reminding people to practice cyber hygiene, but that is by no means the only thing that we do. As I mentioned, there is a system that strikes a balance between the liability on the banks as well as on the part of the consumers. In fact, for consumers, so long as you are not negligent, you're responsible, you report quickly, the losses they suffer is very much minimized. And these are all encapsulated industry code of practice for banks on credit cards. As I mentioned in my reply, it is also being reviewed. So I know we are all plagued by this cyber crimes and scams. They're all victims of it. Every day we open our emails, we see some of them. So it will continue to be there, and we'll continue to have to strike a balance, educating, but at the same time, protecting consumers, but also to be fair to banks and the industry. So this is something that's evolving, and we'll continue to work on it.